Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how I trim my chain link fence. I've got a few questions about this recently, about the best way to do this, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong way exactly on how to do it. I've just kind of come up with my own little method of trial and error over time, so I figured I'd show you how I do that today. Well, the first thing you want to do is figure out on what kind of trimmer you have, which way that the head spins. Now, of course, this old curved shaft that I have here and most curved shaft trimmers are going to spin clockwise, and then if you have a straight shaft it's probably going to be the opposite direction most of the time. So go ahead and just idle the trigger a little bit and pay attention to the way that the head's spinning. Now the reason that that's important is because the trimmer is going to cut better moving in a certain direction depending on which way the head spins. So because this is going in a clockwise motion, it's going to be better for me to move from left to right with this trimmer. And of course it would be opposite if you had the counterclockwise spinning head, then you would want to move right to left. The other thing that's important is to make sure you have the proper length of string on your trimmer. Now mine still has this little guard on here, so when I pull the string out and if it's a little bit too long, this little cut piece right here will go ahead and cut it to the proper length. So if you don't have a guard on yours, you've probably figured out what the optimal length is for your trimmer, but if you do, this is a pretty easy way to make sure you have the proper amount of line. Now this does break some line sometimes, little by little, as we're going through the fence. It's kind of inevitable from what I've found, but this method that I'm using is pretty much minimal on how much it breaks, and usually I only have to maybe let out string one time, and I have a pretty big fence line. So let's go ahead and go out into the yard, and then I'll show you how I use this trimmer along the fence line. Okay, so as you can see here, as I mentioned, I'm going to be moving left to right here as I move along the fence. What I'm looking to do here is just get right along the fence line with the edge of the string. I don't want to get into the fence with the string, or otherwise it's going to kind of slow down the machine. And it's also going to break the line a lot easier, so it takes a little bit of practice to kind of get used to this, and once you learn your trimmer you'll kind of know exactly how far the line needs to go out. But I want to get right up against this fence line without getting into the fence and breaking the line. Okay, so now as you can see we're moving to the back side of the fence. And pretty much I'm doing the exact same thing as I was on the other side. I just want to get that string right to the edge. I'm trimming that grass right along the edge of the fence there, and I'm not trying to go through the fence. So here in a second, once we get to the end of this line, I'll kind of show you a little trick in order to get the grass that's growing up in between the fence line. Obviously we got both sides here on the edge of the fence, but there's going to be a little bit of grass that's growing up in between. So here in a second I'll show you what I do with that. Okay, so here you can still see the grass kind of growing up in between the fence line here. So this part here is what we still need to take care of in order for it to look perfect. Alright, and now for that little trick that I was mentioning. What I found the easiest way to get this grass in between the fence is to actually move the opposite direction. So now we're moving right to left, and I'm just barely idling the trimmer. And now I'm putting the line directly in between those holes, so it's slowly kind of cutting that grass along that line. Let's show you a close-up. Okay, so here's the close-up as I'm moving right to left. You can kind of see here that the trimmer line is just going in between the fence line there, and it's kind of grabbing onto the grass that's in between there. It's still not breaking the line, but I'm just slowly idling through there and moving right to left. And this works pretty well. Sometimes you have to go over it a couple times, but I find that if you go slow enough the first time, it actually works really well. So here I'm just kind of fine-tuning. You can see it cut that grass. And we're just going through slowly and getting all those little tiny pieces that are in between the fence line. So again, we're moving the opposite direction of the way that the trimmer usually turns. We're idling against the fence line, and we're just kind of letting it do the work and cut those little tiny pieces that are in between there. Okay, so now I'm moving back to the opposite side of the fence, and we're doing the exact same thing on this side, just moving the opposite direction that we trimmed before. We're moving right to left, and we're just going through the fence line slowly, letting it kind of grab onto the grass that's in between the fence line and cutting it. And since we've already trimmed that fence line on the other side, now it really gives us an idea of what grass is left. So I'm just kind of fine-tuning here with whatever I see. If there's just a few little pieces that are kind of sticking out there, I'm just going back and hitting those. And you don't have to be this detailed every single time, but I'm just kind of doing this for demonstration purposes here. Really, it looks pretty good overall, even when you just trim the edges, but this is just for fine-tuning perfection. Alright, and here, as I mentioned, I'm just going back and fine-tuning those little areas that I still see. I'm going to just hit those little areas kind of slowly here, and we're going to completely get rid of all the grass that's in between the fence line. And I'm just moving along the fence line again, slowly doing a final pass. So here in a second, I'm going to show you the final product and exactly what it looks like. Alright, so here's that close-up view that I promised. This is right along the fence line, as you can see. Nothing's sticking up, it's looking really good. And we'll take another closer look here in just a second. This is a up top view here, so you're kind of getting a look at what it looks like when you're standing there looking down on the fence. And then from a distance, as you can see, completely clean. When we get to the right hand side there by the mower, you can see the area that I have not done, so that tells you the difference. I just want to thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We'll see you next time.